The scene unfolds at a pivotal moment when a girl mercilessly taunts the one who will become our protagonist. She lays bare his insecurities, making it clear how insignificant he seems to her. She openly states that if it were her choice, she wouldn't have even wanted to be friends with him as a child. The impact is profound, as if something inside Kazuma, our protagonist, shatters at her words. To understand what led to this, we learn that her name is Rua, and she is far from an ordinary girl. She is a famous idol, descended from an influential family that wields enormous economic and political power. Because of her background, she is often seen as a fairy tale princess, admired and revered. Meanwhile, Kazuma perceives himself as an unremarkable, gloomy boy, convinced he lacks the ability to form genuine connections, let alone find love. Yet, during childhood, he formed a single friendship that transformed his life, the bond with Rua. By a twist of fate, they remained close, never drifting apart. This loyalty became a defining feature of Kazuma's existence, living mostly in Rua's shadow. As years passed, he convinced himself that he didn't need to be extraordinary like her. His true desire was simple: to make friends and find a girlfriend, like any normal person. He once confided in Rua about his wish to change, but she responded curtly, telling him he should appreciate the opportunity she had given him. She implied that without her, he would remain a nobody, a mere shadow of his true potential. High school years arrived, and Kazuma continued to be seen as Rua's loyal companion, her pet in a sense. It's worth noting that he bears strange scars across his body, hints of a troubled past that he rarely discussed. One day, unexpectedly, a classmate invites him to join a group outing. Surprisingly, this girl seems aware of Kazuma's longing for friendship and romance. Despite their limited interaction, Kazuma recognizes that if he genuinely wants change, he must take a risk and make the first move. Motivated, he visits a hair salon, buys new clothes, and attempts to present himself differently, hopeful that this effort might bring the life he dreams of. He then prepares to meet the others at a karaoke spot. But as he enters the room, he is greeted with laughter and mockery. To his astonishment, Rua appears and begins encouraging everyone to ridicule him, criticizing his efforts to reinvent himself. Kazuma's realization dawns. Rua orchestrated the entire scenario to humiliate him once more. However, when he refuses to react defensively, Rua steps closer, mockingly asking why he remains so silent. She suggests that if he's acting this way, he must be close to tears. Kazuma, shaken, asks her if he has done anything to deserve such treatment. She coldly responds that it's because he is her pet, meant to amuse her with his embarrassment. Adding insult to injury, Rua admits that even being her childhood friend bothers her, a sentiment that reveals her complex feelings and the manipulative, hurtful dynamic that defines their relationship. Upon hearing those words, something inside Kazuma finally shatters. Recalling the pivotal moment in the story, he tells her that if she truly feels that way, then perhaps it's best to end the long-standing friendship they've shared. His remark prompts laughter from everyone around. After all, there's little reason to take such words so seriously. Yet for Rua, it's like a bucket of cold water thrown onto her. She immediately tries to change his mind, insisting he has no right to say such a thing and that, unlike her, he doesn't possess the freedom to hate her. Kazuma, however, is no longer concerned. With a decisive gesture, he leaves money to cover his share and walks away, leaving Rua in shock. Despite the others' reassurances that he's not worth worrying over, a feeling that he was never truly special lingers in her mind. At that moment, a girl who had invited Kazuma notices something unusual. The table, which was previously intact, is now broken, and the most damaged spot coincides with where Kazuma left the money. Some people claim it was already like that, doubting that Kazuma could be responsible, and they proceed with their gathering without giving it further thought. When they try to lift Rua's spirits, her indifferent manner turns into complete apathy, and she becomes fixated on the fact that she will never forgive Kazuma for what he's done. Meanwhile, Kazuma feels as if a heavy burden has been lifted from his shoulders. Reflecting on past incidents, he reassures himself that from this moment onward, he no longer needs to live in Rua's shadow. He remembers that once he served as a kind of protector for her, but that era is now over. His desire is to be free and independent, no longer relying on her support. Later that evening, we see Rua's grandfather, a prominent figure serving as president of a certain organization and also as director of the academy where Rua and Kazuma study. Rua bursts into his office unexpectedly, much to his delight, as such visits are rare. It's then that another person is introduced, Sakura, Rua's cousin. Despite the serious matters being discussed, Rua brings up that Kazuma had done something terrible to her. She claims he told her they should end their friendship, marking the first time he has ever acted so cold toward her. Sakura suspects that Rua may have done something genuinely upsetting to provoke such a reaction, but Rua clarifies that it wasn't anything serious. She simply reaffirmed that Kazuma is her pet and admitted that being her childhood friend is somewhat annoying. Listening to this, both Sakura and her grandfather find it understandable that Kazuma was angry. Rua then insists she wasn't being entirely serious. She was merely a little upset because, since starting high school, Kazuma has been constantly talking about making new friends and finding a girlfriend. To them, this appears to be entirely normal behavior for a young man eager to grow and explore new relationships. Rua stubbornly refuses to accept the situation. Raising her voice, she proclaims herself the most beautiful girl in the world. She insists that Kazuma should be content with her alone, asserting that she is the only one who truly understands him and even knows that he loves her. In her declaration, she affirms her love for him as well. Immediately after, her doting grandfather sides with Rua, as he often does, leaving Kazuma to bear the blame once again. Sakura, observing this, suggests that if Rua truly wants to repair their relationship, she must at least communicate honestly with Kazuma about her feelings. She warns that avoiding openness will only drive him away further, risking the possibility that they may never return to their usual closeness. Despite this, Rua remains firm, resolutely stating that she will be the one to mend things. It is also revealed that Sakura is actually Kazuma's teacher, further connecting him to Rua's family. Building on this, Rua asks Sakura to persuade Kazuma to apologize and, if possible, to confess his feelings, since she is tired of merely being his friend. Sakura then questions her grandfather, hinting whether he envisions Kazuma marrying Rua, to which he eagerly agrees. The grandfather explains he initially sent Kazuma to her to train him in martial arts and discipline, preparing him to eventually lead the family organization. This background reveals a hidden side of Kazuma's life. From a young age, he operated in the shadows of Rua, assigned to stay inconspicuous to keep a low profile. Sakura notes that if Kazuma ever chose to pursue things seriously, he would be incredibly successful and attract attention in every endeavor. She also mentions that, despite his hidden nature, some girls have fallen for him, though he habitually ignores them. Together, Rua and her grandfather conclude that Kazuma is destined to carry on their family legacy. However, Sakura reminds them that they must address the small problem Rua caused. There is a chance Kazuma might decide to leave, feeling no need to suppress his power anymore. This could lead to serious issues, not just academically and athletically, but also in matters of love. The following morning, Rua maintains her hostile attitude towards Kazuma. She even places a mocking sign on his desk, symbolizing her disdain. Kazuma, facing the consequences of defying her, recognizes her authority within the academy, especially since her grandfather is the director. Overcoming this obstacle is crucial if he hopes for a normal life. Instead of removing the sign, he chooses to write on it, agreeing with her and announcing that he will now handle everything himself. When the break begins, Kazuma aims to stay out of sight so Rua doesn't notice him. To do so, he quietly heads to the school's underground storage room, a place he considers safe since neither students nor teachers frequent it. He believes it will serve as his refuge. However, when he opens the door, he unexpectedly finds a girl inside, in the midst of changing clothes. Shocked, she screams upon seeing Kazuma, sparking a tense encounter that marks the start of days no longer peaceful for him. Meanwhile, Rua presents herself publicly as a popular idol known by many. She shares a recent incident on a widely followed platform, explaining that some days earlier she went karaoke with a group of female classmates. One girl, visibly gloomy the entire time, suddenly announced she was leaving, despite having just arrived. That abrupt departure ruined the mood. Rua advises her followers to avoid such behavior and encourages empathy, so everyone can enjoy their time together. Switching topics, Rua reveals exciting news about a new career opportunity. She's been cast to debut in a group alongside a voice actress named Amain Minato. She mentions that Amain is part of the same talent agency and also attends her school. After sharing this update, Rua notes that the debut will take place in 2 weeks and concludes her message. Supportive comments flood in, many agreeing she had every right to be upset with that person. If it was unclear before, the person Rua referred to was Kazuma, the story's protagonist. She seems to be justifying her frustration with him. Returning to the core story, we revisit Kazuma's visit to the underground storage, convinced he would find no one there. Yet, to his surprise, he comes across a girl changing clothes inside. He immediately apologizes and seizes the moment to introduce himself. She responds by revealing her name, Amain Minato, and we realize she is the same person Rua mentioned earlier. Once she finishes changing, she invites Kazuma to enter. He remains preoccupied with the thought that he isn't the only one aware of this hidden spot, but he quickly moves on to another question. Boldly, he asks Amain why she was changing clothes there instead of using the designated dressing room. She nervously explains that she had been searching for a place to practice singing and dancing because of an upcoming live event. Recalling the existence of this space, she prepared everything necessary to rehearse. She then reveals that she is a voice actress as well. Kazuma listened carefully as she explained that the academy housed several talented artists, including a childhood friend of his, all regarded as top students. This surprised him, as he wondered why she chose this makeshift practice spot rather than the dedicated facilities available at the school, which offered privileged spaces for performances. Amain hesitated before admitting that her desk had been moved to the hallway that morning, with a note indicating there was no room for her. Her words revealed her feelings of neglect, illustrating she was not treated well here. When Kazuma found her, she wore a forlorn expression, nearly on the verge of tears. He asked why she was being neglected despite her status as an outstanding student, but Amain clarified that her struggles had nothing to do with her abilities. She explained that, despite calling herself a singer, she was no one famous. Her face and voice lacked recognition. Kazuma disagreed, complimenting her with a sincere smile, comparing her voice to the gentle chime of a small bell, sweet and easy to identify. His honest praise caused Amain to blush deeply, yet she shyly dismissed his words as exaggeration. She insisted she could not compare to professional singers, and even mentioned her lesser status relative to Rua, a popular figure. Mentioning Rua visibly saddened her, and she revealed they had recently been paired for a project, which she believed marked the start of her mistreatment. She shared that social media messages criticized her, claiming she was unworthy of sharing the stage with Rua and that her presence could tarnish Rua's reputation. Kazuma was unsurprised, noting that Rua's fans behaved just as she did, jealous and dismissive. Curious, he asked how she ended up being paired with such a prominent figure, using a derogatory nickname that distressed her. She warned him that if anyone overheard such words, it could spell disaster for both of them. Nevertheless, Kazuma paid no heed and gently reassured her. Amain explained that her agency had assigned the pairing simply because they found it a compelling concept. But the arrangement deeply affected her, fueling her endless comparisons between herself and Rua. She saw herself as plain and gloomy, convinced her role was limited to a supporting act beside Rua. Kazuma thought she was being overly hard on herself, but a nagging suspicion grew. Her agency was connected to Rua's grandfather's organization, making her support for Rua predictable. Even with that connection, he wondered why the agency would match Rua with someone so new. He suspected it might be a scheme to make Rua shine even brighter by making Amain look inferior. Still, Amain declared that, even if she had to play a secondary role, she would seize the opportunity and do her best. She is determined not to be a burden, and so she commits herself fully to her efforts. As she confides in Kazuma, He recognizes her resolve and decides to assist her in practicing, even if his advice remains that of a beginner. Deep down, he also sees this as an opportunity to stay out of sight. When Amain realizes that she has at least one supporter in that place, her face lights up with joy. Smiling softly, she tells Kazuma that from now on, she's counting on him. Her gesture prompts an internal comparison in Kazuma, who cannot help but think of how her gentle demeanor contrasts sharply with the miserable moments he has endured with Rua. Meanwhile, Kazuma receives several messages from Ria, who asks whether he has seen her recent video. She mentions that all her fans are rallying behind her and accuses him of being terribly insensitive for how he treated her. She even jokes that perhaps her next video should include his name to invite her fans to bother him, warning that she is ready to forgive him if he kneels before her. However, upon reading her messages, Kazuma refuses to be manipulated into returning to her, choosing instead to block her to avoid further trouble. That way, he frees himself from her nonsense. Later, during a break, Kazuma approaches Amain with a bottle of water, ready to continue rehearsing. At that moment, he unexpectedly encounters Rua, who demands to know where he has been all this time. She presses him about his recent behavior and why he blocked her, asserting that no one should treat her that way. Kazuma remains silent, refusing to reply. Sensing Kazuma's silence, Ria convinces herself that perhaps he has finally realized her beauty and is too nervous to face her. Frustrated with her chatter, Kazuma quickly walks away, leaving her talking to herself. Just as he begins to leave, Rua's followers block his path, demanding an explanation for his apparent disrespect towards Rua. Kazuma assesses the situation and notices that the individual confronting him is the upcoming baseball club star. He wonders why this young man spends so much time fixating on Rua instead of focusing on training. Without a word, the baseball player takes offense and punches Kazuma. Kazuma swiftly evades, effortlessly positioning himself behind the attacker with a hostile expression that visibly intimidates him. Calmly, Kazuma remarks that the young man needs more practice. Enraged, the player attempts to strike again, but Rua intervenes, declaring that only she is authorized to bother Kazuma. She emphasizes that others are allowed to harass him only if she gives the order, which she has not. She warns the young man to stay away, implying serious consequences if he doesn't heed her advice. The scene concludes, and Kazuma finally turns to Ria, who immediately becomes overly excited, convinced she has been forgiven. However, Kazuma notices her smugness for such a minor interaction. He then clarifies that the person who once tolerated her bullying or stalking no longer exists. He refuses to let anyone manipulate or belittle him, neither her nor anyone else. With finality, he asks her to stop bothering him. He then says farewell, leaving Ria in shock. Though her feelings are hurt by his words, it's clear she is more captivated by Kazuma's cool demeanor. Her affection for him only deepens. A week passes during which Kazuma and Amain grow closer. With his support, she begins to develop genuine feelings toward him and regularly commends him for his skills. In such a short time, he has helped her improve her dance moves. Her gratitude, expressing how much she appreciates his help, doesn't go unnoticed, especially since it's the first time someone has thanked him sincerely for his efforts. Still, Kazuma feels he hasn't done anything extraordinary to deserve such appreciation. As Amain's dance performance approaches, Kazuma observes her slightly hunched posture. Seizing the moment, he suggests she imitate a cat to make her choreography stand out more. As he suspected, she quickly finds a way to harness the charm of an adorable feline, turning it into her secret weapon. Seeing her determination, Amain realizes she can embody that character to distinguish herself within the group. Excited, she considers asking for a costume aligned with her concept. First, she agrees, but then suddenly changes her mind. She recalls that the agency's goal is to make Rua the star, and their proposed idea wouldn't suit her. Moreover, it might overshadow her. Although Amain is meant to be a supporting performer, Kazuma feels disappointed but accepts her decision. Noticing his downcast expression, she reassures him that singing and dancing have never been her main focus. Her true passion is acting, and she dreams of portraying an anime character someday. To achieve that goal, she plans to work hard, build connections, and make steady progress toward her professional aspirations. She encourages him not to be upset just because she won't be the center of attention at the upcoming event. Her unwavering optimism and love for her craft fill Kazuma with admiration, so much so that he feels a twinge of envy. Yet, he keeps his inner feelings hidden and admits that he has no dreams or ambitions of his own, as he truly lacks any. Amain gently inquires if there is anything the protagonist desires to do, sensing his hesitation. Despite feeling uncertain and somewhat discouraged, he musters the courage to admit that his deepest wish is to become a normal person, someone he can genuinely be proud of. He anticipates her possibly mocking him much like Rua once did. Instead, Alan offers unwavering support, confident that Kazuma can attain his goals and overcome any obstacle if he remains committed. Her reassurance brings a faint smile to his face, and he thanks her sincerely. This heartfelt exchange prompts Amain to revisit a topic she has been hesitant to discuss. She mentions hearing rumors of a recent quarrel between Kazuma and Rua, fearing it might stem from her involvement. Kazuma clarifies that it's not related. He confesses that he and Rua are no longer close friends from childhood, preferring to distance himself from her. Hearing this, Amain experiences both relief and a twinge of anxiety. With her concerns eased, she begins to address Kazuma by his first name, having previously used only his surname. She then considers asking him a pivotal question, starting with, "Do you want to be my?" But before she can finish, Rua suddenly appears, abruptly breaking the moment. Rua has spent the week tracking Kazuma's whereabouts and has uncovered his recent location. Acting out of jealousy, she confronts him, demanding to know what that home wrecker cat is doing with her cherished Kazuma. She steps in front of him, confessing she came because he never visited her. Finally understanding her true motive, Rua's facade quickly shifts to anger, and she unleashes a barrage of insults directed at Amain. Furious, she accuses Kazuma of disappearing after class solely to meet this girl, unable to comprehend why he would be unfaithful with someone she considers so gloomy and plain. Her envy ignites into fury as she sees them so close, and she shouts that she shouldn't have to endure this. Claiming Kazuma belongs to her and no one else, she demands to know why he isn't on her side. Kazuma chooses silence, opting not to explain himself or argue his case. Meanwhile, Amain feels worried about Rua's influence and the potential consequences. Attempting to ease the tension, she begins to blame herself for being the one who asked Kazuma to join her during her practice, believing it exacerbated the situation. As she speaks, Rua unexpectedly reacts with swift, overwhelming jealousy. She lunges at Amain, furious that she called Kazuma by his first name, a mistake that exposes her vulnerability. Her face contorted with jealousy and rage, Rua demands to know what she just said. Amain tries to rectify her slip-up, but it's too late. Consumed by her jealousy, Rua does not hold back her spite. She ruthlessly asserts that Amain will never draw close to Kazuma and forces her bangs aside, intending for Kazuma to see how unattractive she perceives her to be. The scene intensifies as emotions boil over, revealing the underlying conflicts and jealous passions that threaten to undermine any fragile peace between them. Beneath her bangs and shy exterior, Amain concealed a gentle sweetness capable of capturing anyone's heart. Yet, at that moment, Ria's fear took hold, a dread that Kazuma might have fallen for her. That fear almost prompted her to lash out, but the protagonist, already tired of her tantrum, intervened, asking if she was supposed to form a group with Amain. Rua admitted she was, but only to use her as a backdrop to stand out more herself. Hearing this, Kazuma responded that Amain was working hard to fulfill her role, urging Rua to stop interfering and to leave them be. Nonetheless, Ria challenged him, accusing him of always siding with the girl and questioning whether supporting his childhood friend wouldn't be better. Kazuma made it clear he would only support those making genuine effort. He also reminded Rua of their last encounter at the karaoke, making it clear they were no longer close. Rua was momentarily stunned but quickly tried to play it off by asking if he was still angry, pretending it was just a joke and attempting to mend fences. Kazuma refused to be deceived by her superficial words, confronting her about how many people she had hurt with her trivial games. Moving closer, he told her to recognize that the world did not revolve around her and that she needed to understand her true place. Her reaction was visibly shaken, and seeing her state, Kazuma took the opportunity to ask Amain to leave with him. Before they could go, Rua snapped back, asserting that he had made a mistake by not choosing her. She refused to give up, declaring she wouldn't be beaten by a second-rate voice actress like Amain. Outside the school, Amain kept apologizing, but Kazuma calmed her down, explaining that the recent events sparked an idea to finally make Rua leave them alone. He believed they could exploit her inflated pride to teach her a lesson she wouldn't forget. Later, at a restaurant, Kazuma handed Amain a pair of cat ears he had bought. He then inquired whether she had a channel where she uploaded videos, suggesting she wear the ears while performing a dance from a recent choreography. Kazuma seemed puzzled by this sudden request, especially since her subscriber count was modest. He reassured her that he would help because it was all part of his plan. Without warning, he asked her to lift her bangs when they recorded and complimented her, saying she was very cute and lamenting that she hid her face. Amain blushed deeply upon hearing this, admitting she was afraid of others looking at her, which was why she kept her face covered, even though she knew it wasn't the best habit. All she can manage is a faint apology, still lacking the confidence to confront her fears. In reply, the protagonist raises the topic of the agency, wondering if they have ever commented on her looks. Amain responds that they actually told her she appeared more attractive that way. The group they're forming is solely meant to create buzz and enhance Rue's fame. After recording a single, the group will be dissolved. Kazuma comments on how corrupt the entertainment industry often is. Amain tries to soften this view, explaining that the agency is largely owned by Rua's grandfather, making her rise predictable. Mentioning this causes Amin to hesitate about challenging Rua, revealing her deep-seated insecurity, which she attributes to her environment. In this world, many fear losing their status and suppress anyone who shines. It becomes clear that at school and in her career, Amain was surrounded by those who didn't want her to succeed. While contemplating this, Amain asks why he despises Rua so much, given that they've been childhood friends. It's obvious she cares for him deeply. Yet, the protagonist chooses not to elaborate, dismissing her concern as her causing him trouble. Changing the subject, he notices that Amain no longer calls him by his name, despite their prior agreement. He suggests she simply call him Kazuma instead of using his last name. Hearing this, she lights up and, almost without thinking, asks if she may call him Amain from now on. He agrees immediately, stunning her into silence. Once she recovers, she's eager to give her best for the upcoming video shoot as part of their plan. Transitioning to YouTube, Amain introduces herself to the audience, announcing she will perform an original dance titled the Amain Dance. Even though her subscriber count is modest, she kindly encourages viewers to watch until the end. With confidence, she begins executing the carefully practiced choreography, casting a spell over viewers with her performance and her voice. Her adorable demeanor leaves a pure, captivating impression. At the end, her face glowing with excitement, she proclaims that the song will be part of her group's highly anticipated debut. She cheerfully invites everyone to see her perform this coming Sunday during such a special event. Naturally, she asks viewers to subscribe to her channel, just as a typical YouTuber would. She also suggests subscribing to this one. Kazuma watches her performance, thinking only about how adorable Amain looked. However, when he reads through the comments, which are few, he notices mixed reactions. Some comments come from Rue's fans, which makes him realize that, despite his reluctance, he needs to start an investigation. He watches Rue's latest video, convinced it contains some of the hateful comments she received, only to witness her reveal her true self on camera. Filled with unrestrained anger, she begins disparaging the protagonist with names similar to his, carefully avoiding obvious signs of her feelings for him. It becomes increasingly difficult for her to maintain the facade. Her jealousy is so blatant that she even questions her audience, asking why he did not choose her. After venting, she swiftly reverts to her flawless girl persona, claiming that what viewers just saw was merely a rehearsal to demonstrate her acting talent. so there's no cause for surprise. She then jokes that her skills are so exceptional she should consider becoming an actress, then signs off by bidding farewell to her viewers. Once the video ends, Kazuma is left staring at the screen, bewildered by what he just saw. Yet, he remains struck by her harsh insults, which she managed to hide behind a veneer of anger. To him, this is no mere tantrum. It's a clear sign of hostility. He decides that when the time comes, he will show no mercy in confronting her. Still, he recognizes that to do so effectively, he must first contend with Ru's popularity. She garners thousands of views, whereas Kazuma's own video, featuring Amain, barely reaches 50. Despite its modest reception, he believes this clip, which showcases her heartwarming nature, has the potential to go viral and spread widely, if only he helps her get noticed. He posts a message revealing that, despite his quiet nature and lack of friends, he is very different online. Some time ago, seeking to develop social skills and carve out a more normal life, he started interacting in online communities, hoping to find a place where he belonged. Unexpectedly, this effort led to him becoming the sub-leader of a sizable clan, as he made valuable contacts along the way. A few days later, Amain arrives to meet him, surprised and puzzled when she discovers that within just 3 days, the video she believed would fail has become a viral hit. Curious, she asks Kazuma if he had a hand in its success. He admits he helped spread it, but emphasizes that her natural talent was the real reason it stood out. Her cheeks flush with blush, as for the first time she feels the genuine support of someone who truly believes in her. Encouraged by the positive comments she's received, she is motivated to stand out during the upcoming group performance, especially since some classmates have said they plan to attend just to see her. Meanwhile, Rua has taken charge of promoting the event across the school, ensuring that many students will come to watch. With only a few days remaining, it was time to initiate the next phase of their plan. They patiently waited for Rua to take the bait they had set. True to expectation, Rua soon appeared at the storage room to disrupt their preparations. She was wearing a pair of cat ears after watching Eamon's video, and Kazuma had anticipated this move. Rua completely fell into their trap, acting overly confident and emphasizing her cuteness with the quirky accessory, as if to declare she believed she couldn't possibly lose. Her self-assurance was so exaggerated that she openly challenged Amen to a cat ear contest, expecting the audience to decide who was the cutest. It was at that moment everything clicked into place. The true aim of the plan was for Amen to perform on stage wearing cat ears and captivate the crowd with her choreography. Kazuma knew how Rua would react after the video went viral because, as her childhood friend, he understood her well. It was obvious she was suppressing her frustration at having been overshadowed. With everything set, they prepared to invoke their rebellion against Rua. On the long-awaited day of the event, Kazuma unexpectedly encountered Amen far from the dressing rooms. When he inquired, she explained that Rua had thrown a tantrum with the manager and refused to share space with others. As expected, they had conceded to her demands, leaving Amen with a hardly adequate dressing area, barely more than a small closet. Luckily, Rua's outburst meant she wouldn't bother them anymore. Kazuma reassured Amen that as long as she performed as she always did, everything would turn out fine. Having watched her practice diligently every day, he urged her to believe in herself. Her words prompted her to wonder why he was putting so much effort into supporting her, since she felt she didn't deserve it. Kazuma explained that he saw the school system as overly elitist, especially towards top students, and believed that Elm could challenge that inequality if she succeeded without relying on privilege. In reality, his main motivation was simpler. Seeing her work so hard inspired him to help. Pulling out a pair of handmade cat ears, Kazuma told her he'd crafted them just for her. He'd been searching for a style that suited her, but decided that making them himself would be faster. Amen blushed at the thoughtful gift and promised to give her best effort. Casually, Kazuma gently pushed back her hair, revealing her face completely because he knew that no one could outshine her in that moment. Yet, Amen still hesitated, feeling unready to fully unveil herself publicly. The protagonist then reveals that he also attempted to transform his appearance. He shares that the day he was invited to karaoke, he mustered the courage to visit a hair salon. The change left him feeling reborn, as if a new person had emerged. He believed that a fresh look would alter how others perceived him. Unfortunately, the response was less than encouraging. Instead of admiration, he found himself being pointed at and laughed at by onlookers. That painful experience convinced him that Amain is truly exceptional. She possesses a rare inner glow, capable of outshining anyone, because she harbors a grand dream and has dedicated herself tirelessly to making it real. Suddenly, the door creaks open, announcing that it is Amain's turn to perform. Kazuma steps forward, offering her his hand and giving her a final boost of encouragement. He reminds her that she no longer needs to hide in Rin's shadow, confident that her newfound self-assurance will win over every fan. Inspired by his words, Amain steps onto the stage, inching closer to the dream she has treasured for years. Meanwhile, Rua is already there, beginning her act with a gracious thank you to the audience. As anticipated, the crowd showers her with praise, especially for her striking catgirl costume. Her ego swells under the praise, fueling a sense of superiority over Amain. She launches into her group's song without hesitation, but before she forgets, she introduces Amain to the audience. She believes Amain will blend into the background, as she often does at school. However, as Amain lifts her bangs and greets everyone with a charming, energetic voice, the crowd's reaction shifts. Her adorable demeanor immediately makes her stand out more than Rua. The realization hits Rua hard. She wonders why people are paying more attention to this girl who was supposed to be just a mere background figure. Yet, Rua is clever and knows her strengths. Her experience in singing and dancing makes her confident she can steal the spotlight. Eager for the audience's focus, Rua launches into her performance, giving her all. Despite her efforts, comments about Amain grow increasingly frequent. Spectators ask who she is and where she came from. To everyone's surprise, Amain's quiet presence begins to outshine Rua, both in voice and dance. While this unfolds, Kazuma had already anticipated Rua's downfall. He explains that she thought she could win by transforming the competition into a contest of singing and dancing. Meanwhile, Amain had been relentlessly practicing, even after school hours, diligently improving in areas that once challenged her, especially dance. Her skills now reached mastery, and her voice, already beautiful, became even more radiant, fueled by the confidence Kazuma had helped her develop. After careful reflection, Kazuma concludes that the outcome of the encounter was sealed the moment Rua, driven by envy of Amain, tried to imitate her and ride the wave of popularity with cat ears. Rua had inadvertently stepped directly into the trap they had orchestrated, choosing to challenge Amain precisely on her strongest ground. Now, there was nothing she could do to alter that fate. It was as inevitable as the day she had humiliated Kazuma during that karaoke session. Amidst these thoughts, Kazuma suddenly notices a new complication approaching. Several men in the audience, with tense expressions, are watching Rua's predicament. Recognizing their intent to reach the backstage area, reserved only for authorized personnel, Kazuma wastes no time and swiftly moves toward them. Moments later, one of these men attempts to contact his colleagues but receives no response, left with no choice. He mutters under his breath that, before the song concludes, he must get that girl off the stage. Without any warning, Kazuma is already waiting for him, immediately demanding to know who he plans to remove from the stage. Just then, the man notices that Kazuma has already taken care of his associates. He asks in surprise who this boy is to have achieved such a feat. Kazuma remains silent, simply questioning whether the man is part of the Tweaky family, Ru's kin. Seeing no reply, Kazuma reveals what he suspects. Amain was not merely supporting but was ordered to sabotage the performance and cause it to fail publicly. The man, startled by Kazuma's knowledge of such sensitive information, inquires how he figured it out. Kazuma confirms his deduction without hesitation, then swiftly moves behind the man and sends him tumbling with a single, decisive blow. With a tone tinged with disdain, Kazuma comments that the Tweaky subordinates are still subpar, perhaps even more so than before, implying their standards have vastly declined since his time. Having dealt with this minor obstacle, Kazuma still finds time to observe the end of Amane's act. It reassures him that her moment will remain intact, that nothing has spoiled her performance, and he would not have allowed anything to happen. Glancing around, he recognizes that even should anything go wrong, the audience is already captivated by Amane's voice, and nothing can stop her now. Yet, despite witnessing her rising influence, Kazuma senses there is still an important action left to take. Drawing a deep breath, he raises his voice with all his strength, urging Amane to give her best. Hearing Kazuma's shout through the crowd, she smiles and confidently advances to the final segment of her song. Realizing what Kazuma had just said, Nua froze in shock, panic overtaking her. A single misstep caused her to stumble and fall publicly before the entire audience, damaging the reputation of the illustrious Princess Rua. Despite this mishap, the event proved to be more successful than expected. The following day, major entertainment outlets exclusively published glowing articles celebrating Rue's performance. Remarkably, no mention was made of her fall, nor of Alan's performance, which was conspicuously absent from reports. This silence might have been orchestrated by Rua's family organization, known for their underhanded tactics to suppress any slip-ups. Yet, Alan's radiant presence could no longer be ignored, especially on social media where videos showcasing her talent rapidly circulated, transforming her image among her schoolmates. The praise continued to grow, much to the delight of the protagonist, who cheered for her newfound popularity. With her rising fame, her former bullies, including that girl, found it harder to target her as easily as before. Rua's reaction, however, seemed to weigh heavily on her. After enduring such humiliation and inadvertently fueling Alan's viral rise, Rua was forced to suppress her envy and retreat to the sidelines, avoiding further scandals. As a result, Alan's growing recognition could no longer be dismissed, thanks to her talent and relentless effort, promising her even greater popularity in the future. Kazuma, however, understood that this success might eventually pose a problem for him. With Rua's obsessive interest in him, his closeness to Alan risked becoming a barrier. Rua still commanded enough influence to sabotage Alan if she chose to do so, leading Kazuma to believe that distancing himself from Alan was the safest course. He convinced himself that stepping back was necessary to protect her dreams, even if it meant taking separate paths. At least from afar, he resolved to watch over her quietly. Yet, just as Kazuma decided to slip away unnoticed, Alan spotted him. Ignoring the people around her, she boldly stopped him, pushing through the crowd with determination to approach and greet him with a warm good morning. This wasn't the only reason she stopped him. Summoning her courage, she asked if they could continue practicing together after school, as they had been doing. Kazuma hesitated, deeming the proposal unnecessary now that the event was over. Then Alan revealed she had been approached for an audition by a different agency interested in her for a new anime project. She was seriously contemplating changing agencies, as she no longer wished to continue her idol career but sought to pursue her true passion, working as a voice actress. She was eager to continue honing her craft with him, driven by a desire to improve her acting skills. Meanwhile, Kazuma hesitated, attempting to explain potential issues that might arise. But just as he spoke her name, Amane cut him off abruptly, announcing that from now on, she no longer wished to be called Amane. She explained that her new stage name was Mana, and everyone around them was stunned by the intensity of their relationship. Among the onlookers was Rua, who watched in silent disbelief, her jealousy simmering uncontrollably as she demanded to know what this woman was doing with Kazuma, her beloved. Turning back to her, Kazuma asked about the sudden transformation in Amane's personality. He noticed that ever since he had lifted her bangs, she had been acting with increased confidence, leaving behind the shy girl she once was. Amane responded honestly, directly blaming him for lifting her bangs, a gesture that allowed her true feelings to surface. She clearly stated she was unafraid of success and told him he bore responsibility for awakening this new, more assertive version of her. In that moment, she closed the distance between them and embraced him wholeheartedly, without hesitation. Watching this, Ria was overwhelmed with despair, her emotional reaction exposing how deeply she had fallen for Kazuma. This blow was so severe that she fainted immediately, realizing she now had little hope of winning his affection back. Following Amain's display, it was evident her popularity surged remarkably. Between her new role as a voice actress and her busy school schedule, her days became so crowded that Kazuma scarcely saw her anymore. Yet, even amid her increasing success, he couldn't ignore the fuss at the school gate, where everyone referred to him as the gloomy guy she liked. Ria's name also came up, especially after rumors circulated about her reaction to seeing Amain approach Kazuma, revealing her feelings for him, the so-called school princess. Despite these whispers, Kazuma's days remained relatively peaceful, until a single occurrence shattered the calm. A group of popular boys arrived, causing irritation and chaos. One of them, a dedicated fan of Rua, boldly approached a girl to ask her out. Surprisingly, that girl was Hirajai, the same girl Rua used to lure Kazuma into a karaoke trap. Hirajai was recognized as the second most beautiful girl in class and a scholarship student excelling in dance. Realizing she no longer had a shot with Rua, the fan made his intentions clear. His second choice was Hirajai. But Hirajai was quick to mock him, ridiculing his desperation to find a girlfriend. She didn't hesitate to portray him as a pathetic opportunist, prompting laughter from the other boys who had gathered around. Despite facing public humiliation, he refused to give up and boldly asked her for a chance. Hirajai, with a sarcastic smile, revealed that she already had a boyfriend, leaving the boy stunned and humiliated once more, something he had never been told before. Though she showed a flicker of pity, she carried herself with the grand elegance that always accompanied her gestures, hinting that there might be a possibility, but only under a very specific condition. She explained that she only dated men with money and wouldn't rule out breaking up with her current boyfriend if someone more capable appeared. Hearing this, the boy tried his last resort. Believing that simply inviting her for tea would impress her, he insisted he had money and was ready to prove it. But to her, that meant nothing. With a designer handbag from the latest collection, bought by her boyfriend without concern for the cost, she pointed out that for him to have a real chance, he'd need to invite her out for tea at least 10 times, just to match the value of that gift. With this crushing remark, she mercilessly rejected him, provoking laughter from everyone witnessing the scene. Meanwhile, Kazuma was entirely indifferent to the ongoing drama. Yet, what irritated him most was the noise that the crowd made, especially since they were popular boys who felt free to raise their voices without restraint. What troubled him even more was seeing that they had taken over a seat that belonged to a girl merely wanting to sit quietly and read a book. That injustice pushed him to act. Unlike before, when he had hesitated to challenge Rua, this time he refused to remain silent. Rising to his feet, Kazuma approached Hirajai directly. Catching her attention politely, he pointed out that the seat wasn't hers and asked her kindly to move. At first, she was stunned, shocked that someone would dare confront her. Yet she quickly recovered, reacting with open hostility. Raising her voice, she told him harshly not to speak to her as if they were acquaintances, dismissing him as nothing more than a lonely loser. Yet Kazuma stayed calm. He reminded her that the bell was about to ring and suggested she return to her seat, but her arrogance refused to let her back down. With a look of disdain, she declared she would do as she pleased. Recognizing that her rejection of him had been building for some time, recalling her cold attitude during the karaoke incident, Kazuma realized words alone wouldn't make her understand. Without hesitation, he decided to act. In front of everyone, he gently lifted her in his arms as if she were a princess, causing her hateful expression to shift into total embarrassment. The entire classroom fell silent, shocked by his boldness. While everyone else remained speechless, struggling to comprehend what Kazuma had just done, he casually told the shy girl with glasses that she could now take her seat, gently stepping aside to give her space. As soon as he released her, she erupted in fury, unwilling to accept that someone she considered insignificant had dared to touch her. She shouted loudly that she would not allow Ru, a mere lapdog, to humiliate her in such a manner. Amid her furious outburst, an unexpected turn of events unfolded. Rua suddenly appeared in the classroom. Seeing the scene and hearing the insults hurled at Kazuma, she strode over to Hirajai. With a cold expression and a hand resting on her shoulder, Rua sharply asked what Kazuma had done to deserve such treatment. Despite Rua's decisive intervention, Hiraji looked visibly daunted, expecting severe repercussions. Kazuma, however, remained composed and detached. He refused to see Rua's presence as an act of reconciliation and viewed it as a gesture that no longer held any significance. Without even a glance in her direction or a word of thanks, he made it clear he wanted no part in her interference. He firmly declared that he had no intention of returning to her side, and that whatever they once shared no longer existed. To him, they were now complete strangers, a truth that was obvious after many days of silence. Although Rua might have believed her sudden show of concern would soften Kazuma's stance, her reaction broke down her composure entirely. Overwhelmed by emotion, she demanded to know why he continued to be so cruel, confessing her undying love and admitting she had lost control upon seeing him with Amain. But Kazuma, tired of empty promises and emotional manipulation, responded coldly, emphasizing that he belonged to no one. He made it clear he had no desire to remain at the side of a spoiled girl, incapable of any effort or independence. Without further ado, he returned to his seat and, lost in thought, realized that maintaining his newfound freedom would require completely severing ties with Rua's family. Consequently, the idea of becoming independent, finding a job, began to take shape. He still relied, to some degree, on Rua's family, which prompted him to search for work. One particular listing caught his eye, a themed cafe staffed by butlers and maids. Curiously, the ad sparked his interest, as he had previous experience working as a butler. This brought back memories of his days at Rua's house, where he learned how to clean, serve, and act with proper etiquette. These skills, he thought, might prove useful in this new effort to forge his own path. Without hesitation and despite the distance, he decided to apply that very day. The cafe manager greeted him promptly and, after a brief chat, gave him the go-ahead to start working that weekend. Surprised by the immediate acceptance, Kazuma's reaction caught her eye, prompting a warm smile. She remarked that just by looking at him, she could tell he'd excel in the role. She expressed enthusiasm that someone like him had shown interest, explaining that the cafe was small, currently managed solely by her and one other girl who would now serve as his supervisor. She reassured him that he could approach that girl for any guidance, emphasizing her kindness and encouraging him to seek help freely during his shifts. Finally arriving at the eagerly anticipated weekend, Kazuma's first day began. When he entered the cafe and announced his arrival, a maid who was cleaning at the moment instinctively dropped her supplies. Her reaction soon became clear. The girl he was about to work under was none other than Hiraji. She froze upon realizing Kazuma had seen her in uniform, her face reddening with embarrassment as she stood silent, unable to speak, her discomfort mounting. The awkwardness grew as she grappled with the situation, knowing there was no way to conceal her feelings anymore. Meanwhile, Rua remained caught up in Kazuma's cold words, but her interpretation of his message diverged from the obvious. Instead of perceiving his departure as a harsh farewell, she viewed it as a test of her devotion. She fixated on images of him, convincing herself that his words were meant to challenge her love rather than reject her. Her mind spiraled into obsession, driving her to prove her worth and change herself, regardless of the boundaries she might have to cross, hoping to win his affection anew. Back at the cafe, Hiraji was revealed to be Kazuma's senior at the place he had applied to. Her immediate reaction was one of shock and anger when she saw him, especially because she was careful to keep her workplace hidden from others. Upon realizing he was the new employee, she firmly refused to accept the situation. Kazuma remained silent, observing her attitude and demeanor with calm focus. Her reaction, assuming Kazuma was mocking her, prompted her to say that if he wanted to laugh at her, he should go ahead. Hiraji's words betrayed her effort to maintain her dignity, subtly implying she cared deeply about her image from her school days. Kazuma, however, wasn't there to judge her. Instead, he simply asked why she thought he would mock her, clarifying that he had no intention of doing so. He reassured her that he respected her dedication to her job and recognized how much effort she put into her work. Her words took her by surprise, prompting an immediate reaction characteristic of a classic tsundere. She insisted she wasn't putting in much effort, claiming her presence was solely motivated by money and that she was merely doing the minimum. Meanwhile, Kazuma had already scanned the surroundings and noticed the remarkable cleanliness of the place. Pointing out how spotless everything was, he drew her attention to her diligent work. Hiraiji attempted to dismiss his compliment, arguing that someone else would have done the cleaning if she hadn't. But her excuses crumbled when Kazuma expressed admiration for her efforts. That silence immediately silenced her. Despite her stubborn attitude, she accepted him and sent him off to change into his uniform, promising to teach him all the responsibilities he would handle. Hiraiji's true personality was revealed in her energetic and caring demeanor as she attentively attended to each customer, demonstrating her genuine effort to deliver excellent service. Kazuma was taken aback by this. Her behavior starkly contrasted with what he remembered from school. More surprisingly, her kindness seemed authentic. She wasn't pretending to be polite or putting on a facade. Instead, she appeared to genuinely enjoy her work, her face alive with enthusiasm. Realizing this, Kazuma resolved silently to do his best not to hinder her. As the busiest hour passed, a moment of calm settled over the establishment, allowing both to breathe. In a more relaxed tone, Hiraiji inquired if this was his first experience working in such a place. Kazuma's quick adaptation surprised her, which pleased him, as it confirmed he hadn't become a burden. She even clarified that, contrary to being a nuisance, he should be grateful for his support, helping her more than she expected. Pero then, without warning, her fiery attitude resurfaced. She declared that she couldn't get along with him, citing their history as enemies ever since he ended his friendship with Rua. Kazuma confirmed that he did cut ties with Rua but argued that that didn't justify hostility toward him. Hiraiji then mentioned the karaoke incident, noting she had been involved in mocking him, and suggested he might hold a grudge. Kazuma firmly denied this, explaining that Rua's scheming had dragged Hiraiji into helping set up the prank. Knowing she was merely following orders, he understood she hadn't dared oppose Rua. Setting this aside, Kazuma admitted that he didn't dislike her now. In fact, he admired her. Watching her perform her duties with such enthusiasm and dedication, meticulously handling every task, made him glad to have her as his senpai. Hearing this, Hiraiji's earlier hostility faded. She momentarily forgot her grievances with Rua and her prior attitude toward Kazuma, dropping her aggressive stance and allowing herself to react naturally. Determined to become a dependable and diligent senpai in her role, she resolved to give her best effort. At that moment, shifting the topic, she hesitated briefly before asking why Kazuma had served the last customer instead of letting her handle it. He explained that the man had been staring at her closely, and from his gestures, Kazuma suspected he was hiding a camera in his bag, so he stepped in to prevent a potentially worse situation. The man's intent was clear, prompting Kazuma to ask why she hadn't ejected him, especially since she must have noticed his behavior. He wondered what had caused her to lose her usual confidence, which she typically displayed so openly at school. It was then evident that Hiraiji had fully committed herself as a staff member. Wanting to avoid creating a disturbance that could harm the cafe's reputation, she chose to remain silent. Recognizing how much that place meant to her, Kazuma advised that if the same customer returned, she should inform him so he could take her place. His words clearly indicated she had earned his trust. Before they could continue their conversation, a new customer entered, none other than Amain. She had come because she heard Kazuma was starting work that day, but upon seeing Hiraiji beside him, she couldn't help but wonder where she had seen her before. Given Hiraiji's prominence as a key member of the dance club, Kazuma immediately understood her sudden hesitation. Hiraiji appeared utterly frozen, revealing her deep anxiety about being found out by her classmates since she wanted to preserve her image. Supporting her attempt at discretion, Kazuma told her she could take her break while he handled Amain. A few moments later, Amain received her ice cream and took the chance to speak with Kazuma. During their talk, she described her progress as a voice actress, mentioning she had already secured several significant roles. However, she then expressed a concern now that Kazuma was working, that Rua hadn't visited him recently. Kazuma hadn't considered sharing his job before, but under the circumstances, Amain revealed that Rua had been taking a long break, which was unusual for such a well-known figure. This made Amain suspicious that Rua might be involved in something strange. She warned Kazuma to stay alert. Before departing, Amain unexpectedly embraced Kazuma, energizing him for his upcoming tasks. Her gesture filled him with renewed vitality. She radiated an irresistible innocence, and even our protagonist acknowledged her adorable charm. Since stepping free from Ryu's agency, she seemed to have regained control over her future. Heeding Amain's warning, Kazuma resolved that if Rhea ever attempted anything that might disrupt the peaceful life he had fought so hard to establish, he would personally deal with that troublemaker. Meanwhile, Hiragi couldn't believe her eyes after witnessing what she had just seen. Once she saw the embrace Amain shared with Kazuma, her mind wandered to the true nature of their relationship. Recently, she had noticed Amain becoming increasingly popular at school, capturing everyone's attention. Although she had heard rumors suggesting Amain was close to Kazuma, she had dismissed them as mere gossip. However, observing their interaction changed her perception, and a strange unease took hold, especially since Kazuma had gone out of his way to help her remain unnoticed. Later, on Ru's channel, she reflected more thoughtfully than usual. She shared that she had recently learned from a friend that effort is the most crucial factor in achieving one's goals. After pondering this, she found herself agreeing and wondered what kind of effort would be truly meaningful to her. This realization sparked an idea. If she genuinely wished to protect those she cared about, she could do so by allowing her strength to speak for itself. With newfound determination, she confided in her grandfather, who immediately assured her of his full support for whatever she needed. She then slightly shifted the conversation, explaining that her grandfather's constant support had inspired her to take a brief break to spend time with him. With that, she concluded her video, leaving viewers curious about what her next steps might be. A week had passed since Kazuma began his part-time job, and now he was changing into his butler uniform. By this point, it was evident why Rua hadn't given up on trying to win his affection. Suddenly, Hiragi entered the changing room, and surprised and nervous, she caught a glimpse of what Kazuma had been concealing. She let out a scream and scolded him for changing there. Yet, Kazuma didn't have many options. Technically, that was the girls' changing area, but a boys' dressing room was non-existent, as he was apparently the first male employee to work there, making such incidents almost unavoidable. Once Hiragi calmed down, she noticed his back was covered in scars and asked if he was okay. Kazuma, without going into details, explained that they were from long ago and asked her not to worry. After confirming his condition, Hiragi took the opportunity to admire his physique and became visibly captivated. She began asking whether he participated in any sports clubs or followed a specific training routine. Kazuma modestly replied that he used to train a little but wasn't currently part of any club. To conceal details of his past, he swiftly changed the subject and asked if she was interested in something else. Hiragi was momentarily at a loss for words, and mistaking his tone for teasing, she bluntly told him not to flatter himself, pointing out that she was used to such remarks and even mentioning she had a boyfriend with whom she had already shared everything. Kazuma, playing along, apologized for assuming she might be embarrassed, admitting she was clearly an experienced adult in matters of romance. Setting that aside, they began their shift at the cafe. That day, their manager had left them in charge, having gone home early due to a cold. Despite the minimal supervision, they managed to keep everything under control through the busy hours. Once the peak of the rush was over and only cleaning remained, a group of troublemakers entered. One among them didn't hesitate to include the waitress in his lecherous remarks, trying to flirt as if it were a cliché. Kazuma decided to let Hiragi handle the situation, recalling her ability to deal with such guys easily back in school. However, it became evident that the person working was far different from her usual cool demeanor at school. During work, she adopted a much more assertive personality. This quickened Kazuma's suspicion that she might be holding back her true attitude to maintain professionalism. Suddenly, the troublemaker crossed the line, attempting to lift her skirt and intimidating her. saying she should cooperate if she didn't want him to cause a scene. His companions echoed his threats, warning her that he was a karate expert and not to be underestimated. As other customers grew aware of the confrontation, the man tried to intimidate everyone by flexing his strength, attempting to break a bottle in a show of force. Kazuma caught the bottle easily and approached the table, calmly setting it down and demonstrating how it was properly done. His commanding presence drew applause from the customers, turning the moment into an almost spontaneous performance. Stunned, the troublemaker leader shouted at Kazuma, claiming his bravado didn't mean anything and that he wasn't truly strong. Just as he was about to attack, Kazuma reacted with incredible speed, striking the man in the throat and knocking him to the ground. The entire incident happened so quickly that no one saw how it unfolded, making it seem as if the man had fallen on his own. Without letting him recover, Kazuma calmly ordered him to stay quiet and assured him that he would cover the bill with his wages as compensation. Leaning in close, he warned the troublemaker in a dark tone never to come back to the cafe or bother Hireji again. Startled by the threat, the man had no choice but to retreat, swiftly followed by his companions. With the immediate danger gone, Kazuma turned to Hireji and asked if she was all right. Without uttering a word, she gave him a gentle, shy hug, warning him not to let his ego swell from his actions. She explained she was about to deliver a proper scolding to those troublemakers, yet Kazuma had already taken care of it. Observing this scene, the cafe's regular patrons began to praise Kazuma as a hero, noting that those men had caused significant disturbances in the neighborhood. Some playful remarks were made about her lucky to have such a wonderful boyfriend, which made Hireji blush deeply. She quickly corrected this misconception, insisting she was not his girlfriend, despite the teasing from the other customers. Amidst the commotion, Kazuma noticed a man who seemed inconspicuously indifferent to what had just transpired. As time went on, the cafe prepared to close. While tidying up the last few tables, Kazuma approached Hireji and apologized, explaining that the regulars might have misunderstood and thought they were a couple. She responded more casually than usual, telling him it was no big deal. To Kazuma's surprise, she even apologized for her typically tsundere attitude, admitting that he had truly saved her from those troublemakers. Before she could finish, Kazuma interrupted, saying he needed to step outside momentarily, claiming a customer might have left something behind. He intended to catch up with the individual to return his belonging. While she waited inside, Hireji reflected on why she often struggled to speak honestly about her feelings. Meanwhile, Kazuma reached the customer, informing him he had forgotten something. The man checked his belongings, keys, phone, and wallet, all accounted for. He questioned whether Kazuma had made a mistake, but Kazuma produced a small device found on the man's table that resembled a spy microphone. The man hesitated, then claimed it wasn't his and tried to dismiss it, suggesting he had no idea how it got there, citing the presence of dangerous people and that such devices were common in the area. Kazuma pressed further, noting that, unlike the other troublemakers, this man seemed more suspicious. While others kept their eyes on the criminals, the man kept his head down, which Kazuma found unsettling. He argued that the man's calm demeanor seemed too deliberate, especially given the precise placement of the device. That was enough for Kazuma to stop playing along. The man, evidently trying to evade suspicion, suddenly made a move to attack Kazuma. However, his attempt was futile. Kazuma effortlessly dodged and quickly restrained him with a single motion, asserting control over the situation. Cornered, the man managed a strained smile, as if the situation merely validated what he had long suspected. He remarked that such a display was typical of the proud Takeaki family's genius, confirming rumors that Kazuma was indeed the strongest among the 10 prodigies. These words made it painfully clear that Kazuma's past, one he had desperately tried to leave behind, had resurfaced to interfere once again with his desire for a normal life. Back at the cafe, Hireji watched Kazuma pursue a customer who seemed to have forgotten something. She couldn't help but marvel at his capabilities. Despite only having known him for a week, he executed his tasks flawlessly. She noted that while Kazuma didn't stand out academically, his impressive skills made handling rough characters appear effortless. More than that, She pointed out that despite her rough treatment, Kazuma had always been kind to her. Her time with him had made her finally want to reveal the truth she had kept hidden and speak openly when he returned. Meanwhile, the scene shifted back to Kazuma, who still held the man down. Kazuma understood that this individual had been sent by Rua. It seemed she had been gathering intelligence over the past days, with the sinister aim of targeting all the girls around him. Kazuma asked the man about this, but he refused to respond. With no more information to extract, Kazuma decided to release him, but not before smashing the microphone and warning him sternly to stay away. Refusing to accept defeat, the man, having failed in his mission, saw he could not return empty-handed. Recognizing the severity of the consequences, he chose to confront Kazuma directly. Drawing a knife, he claimed that if he could defeat a legend of the underworld, perhaps his life wouldn't be utterly ruined. Intentionally provoking Kazuma, he added that after finishing with him, he planned to torture the girl at the cafe to gain Ru's favor. Kazuma remained calm despite the threats, forcing the attacker to strike. At the last moment, Kazuma effortlessly deflected the blow. Before the man could recover, Kazuma made him stumble and threw him to the ground. He then told him that he would spare his life this time, warning him to cut ties with the Takeaki family just as Kazuma had chosen to do. With that, Kazuma knocked him unconscious and walked away. A few moments later, after the cafe had closed, Kazuma was seen cleaning the premises. During this quiet task, he discovered additional hidden microphones, confirming his suspicions about Rua's absence. It became clear that she hadn't appeared personally because she had been observing him indirectly all along. Kazuma quietly disposed of each device, ensuring Hireji wouldn't notice before she returned. She announced she had finished cleaning the kitchen, and seeing that he had also completed his tasks at the tables, she suggested they sit and talk for a while. Using the manager's permission, she prepared some tea, and Hireji initiated the conversation by asking why Kazuma chose to work there. He explained that he wanted to experience life as a regular student, take the opportunity to earn some money, and most importantly, break free from the shadow of Rua, the pig who had looked after him all his life. Hireji was taken aback by how casually he spoke about Rua, surprised that Kazuma was the only person she knew who could speak this way about someone others feared. Given the weight of the Takeuchiki family name, Kazuma turned the question back to her, asking why she worked at the cafe when it was no secret she was admired for always wearing brand-name items. An obvious sign that money wasn't an issue. Hireji fell silent for a moment before opening up with surprising honesty. She admitted that her expensive possessions were all fake and that her financial situation was far from what her appearance suggested. She explained that her father had left the family, and since then, they had struggled to make ends meet. That was the true reason she worked at the cafe. Overwhelmed by her emotions, she broke down, confessing that the confident image she projected at school was nothing but a facade. She had built this illusion of wealth, brands, and even a fake boyfriend out of a sense of inferiority, desperately seeking acceptance. All those stories, she admitted, were lies designed to attract attention. Kazuma asked why she was revealing all this, but Hireji was uncertain. She simply wanted him to listen because continuing to deceive him only caused more pain. She also apologized for the confrontation at karaoke and for her previous words, where she had called Kazuma Rua's servant. Now she bitterly admitted that the title suited her better, as she had become merely a follower, pleasing Rua and obeying her every command. She reflected on that past day at karaoke when she presented a new image, acting cold toward Kazuma because she saw parts of herself in him. She remembered how she, too, had once tried to get along with others behind a facade similar to his, and she told him it was okay if he hated her. Hireji acknowledged she had treated him coldly and recognized she could have ended up just like him. She confessed to lying, to feeling insecure and vain, a true self she despised deeply. Despite all her faults, Kazuma told her he still admired her. Her admiration for her stemmed not from her status, her supposed boyfriend, or the designer labels she wore. Instead, he appreciated her unwavering dedication and hard work, qualities visible when she was completely herself, unmasked. To him, she was not only a remarkable maid but also an inspiring senior mentor. Her words brought a deep blush to her cheeks, prompting her to warn him against trivial compliments, fearing such praise might mislead someone close to him. Hiraiji, seated nearby, observed this exchange with a mix of curiosity and amusement, then asked Kazuma if he was dating Aea. Given how clearly Amain liked him, Kazuma simply responded that they were not involved romantically. Hiraiji, unconvinced, noted the closeness between Kazuma and Aea, especially when she visited, citing rumors of frequent time spent together. Kazuma admitted they shared a bond beyond mere friendship, which delighted Hiraiji. Once she understood there was no romantic connection, she wondered aloud if he was available, hesitating to ask whether someone like her might have a chance with him. Before she could finish, the door flung open suddenly. Ryua stepped inside, flanked by another girl who followed silently behind. She greeted Kazuma in an overly sweet tone, her words dripping with feigned innocence. Seeing the other girl, the thief, present, she disregarded her and remarked on how long it had been since their last meeting. She explained how she had cut off communication with her servants and lost the microphone signals, coming now to show her efforts and hope that Kazuma would finally recognize her devotion. Her attitude had shifted sharply, from a spoiled girl to a relentless stalker willing to do anything to attract his attention. To prove her dedication, Rua revealed she had borrowed a special artifact from her grandfather for this purpose. Then she introduced Jinakami Rei, one of the latest prodigies from the Takahashi family's 10-member elite group. Despite her small stature, her formidable reputation was well known. Kazuma could see her strength just by looking at her. At that moment, Rua added that she had brought Ryua as backup, fearing a confrontation with a certain troublesome obstacle she wanted to eliminate. Without hesitation, she moved directly toward Hiraiji, glaring with disdain and accusing her of meddling with her beloved. Harry stood there, completely bewildered, uncertain how Ria even knew she worked there. The revelation, however, was far from over. Ria, with an arrogant smile, confirmed she had known everything all along. She admitted that all her classmates had been thoroughly investigated and that she was fully aware of Hiraiji's lies, although at this point, she no longer cared. She admitted that her lies were simply meant to entertain her, finding amusement in them. However, once Hiraiji dared to approach the boy she liked, Rua decided to go on the offensive. Not in a typical romantic comedy manner, but with a relentless determination to win at all costs. She threatened to revoke Hiraiji's scholarship or even expel her entirely. Rua made it clear that Hiraiji had no right to attempt seduction involving Kazuma, reminding her of her role in a karaoke incident designed to annoy him. This made Hiraiji's current attempt to get close even more absurd. At that point, Kazuma stepped in, asserting he bore no grudges against Hiraiji and knew from the start that Rua was behind it all. But Rua instantly silenced him, insisting this was a girl's matter, and if he truly wanted to intervene, he would have to face Rei first. Continuing her taunts, Rua mocked the lies Hiraiji had told, recalling one where she claimed to have had a date at the bay with her boyfriend, who then walked her home and kissed her goodbye. Just recalling it, Rua found it so ridiculous she had to force herself not to burst out laughing in front of everyone, adding to her embarrassment. She confronted Hiraiji with the fact that she had known all along Hiraiji never had a boyfriend in her entire life. Watching Ru's amusement at Hiraiji's expense, Kazuma didn't remain passive. Rather than engaging Rua directly and avoiding escalating the situation further, he gently took Hiraiji's hand and kissed her confidently. If Rua wanted Hiraiji's lies to be exposed, he would make them true himself. That bold kiss underscored how inevitable Rua's defeat was becoming. At this pace, this obsessive girl was on the verge of turning into a full-fledged Yandere, her fixation escalating dangerously. After Seema delivered that kiss without hesitation, he pulled back slightly, adopting a calm but subtly provocative tone. He remarked that Yu's supposed lack of experience no longer seemed very convincing. That single comment shifted the atmosphere instantly, making it heavy and oppressive. In response, Rua's jealousy ignited completely, and without hesitation, she coldly ordered Rei to eliminate the girl. For Rei, who had spent her entire life as nothing more than a tool, Questioning such an order was never an option. Without delay, she gathered her strength and raced toward them. However, Casimir responded instantly, pushing her aside in one smooth motion and anticipating Rei's approach with a swift, powerful kick. Yet, Rei deflected the attack effortlessly, taking no damage at all. Moments later, she calmly landed in front of him, as if the brief clash had meant nothing. In the tense silence, you can only watch helplessly, feeling caught between fear and bewilderment, unable to grasp the unfolding events. Kasuma begins to deliberately provoke Rei, openly challenging the newest member of the 10 elite warriors. His feigned dismissal clearly aims to strike a nerve. Before anything escalates, Rua intervenes, snapping Rei back to reality. She sternly instructs her to ignore Kasuma, reminding her that her sole purpose is to eliminate the so-called home wrecker cat. With her mission clear, Rei readies one of her specialized weapons, quickly gaining momentum. She leaps high, preparing to deliver a decisive blow to Ya. Yet, just as she is about to land, Kasuma effortlessly catches her by the foot in midair. Without giving her a moment to react, he yanks her down by her hair, treating her like an inexperienced assassin. Unexpectedly, Rei smiles, appearing to enjoy the situation. In that moment, Kasuma perceives the reality. Having been used as a tool his entire life, fighting a formidable opponent might be the only true freedom she's known. He then takes on a more serious tone, urging her to cut all ties with the Tachiki family. Rei, puzzled, questions why she should do such a thing. Kasuma reveals that he was once just like her, trapped and suffering, but he found his escape by making a choice. Because he understands her pain firsthand, he tells her she has the power to be free and that she can choose a different path. Offering a fresh start, he suggests she could work for him and lead a normal life. Rei's gaze briefly shifts toward Ya, while Ya begins to wonder who Kima really is. Suddenly, Rua interrupts the moment, desperately urging Rei to finish the task quickly. When Rei remains silent, Rua accuses her of disobedience. Her hardened expression and reignited bloodlust leave no doubt. She's determined to act. Kasuma quickly realizes that everything won't be resolved easily, knowing it took him years to break free from that family's control. He prepares himself, ready to protect Ya at any cost. Just then, an unexpected figure arrives. Standing beside Rua is her cousin, Sakura. As hinted earlier, she turns out to be Kasuma's former master, belonging to another branch of the Tachiki family, the one responsible for eliminating those deemed undesirable. Almost immediately, her authority is evident, as she is the only one able to challenge Rua's imposing presence. After apologizing for her cousin's chaos, Sakura confronts Rua on how casually she discusses killing Ya and using Rei, a takoyaki weapon, as a tool for such violence. She warns Rua that she has crossed a line, reminding her that Rei's purpose was to serve as a protector, not an executioner. Subtly but with conviction, Sakura hints that if their grandfather discovered Rua's use of authority to remove a friend, it might cast doubt on her integrity. Confronted with this unspoken warning, Rua becomes visibly distressed, suddenly fearing the loss of her privileges and possessions. Sensing her hesitation, Sakura seizes the moment to propose a straightforward bargain. She will keep their secret if Rua offers a genuine apology and leaves peacefully, avoiding any further disturbance. Reluctantly, though with visible resistance, Rua finally consents. She swallows her pride and forces herself to apologize to Ya for almost ordering her execution. Witnessing this, Kasuma is left utterly stunned. He internally notes that this marks the first time Rua has ever apologized to anyone and wonders if she truly contemplated her actions during his absence. Soon after, Ya steps forward to offer her own apology for long concealing the truth. Remarkably, Rua accepts this apology, but her forgiveness has clear limits. While deception is one thing, forming a close bond with Kasuma, her beloved, is completely another. Her composure slips once again as she issues a threatening warning to Ya, proving beyond any doubt to Kasuma that Rua's character remains unchanged. Before tensions escalate further, Rei intervenes physically, pulling Rua out of the shop to defuse the situation. Meanwhile, Sakura stays behind, taking a moment for a private conversation with Kasuma. She cuts straight to the core, asking whether he plans to return to the Takahashi family. Kasuma responds calmly that he has no intention of reuniting with them. His firm stance reveals that he knows their grandfather's obsession with forcing him into marriage with Rua is relentless, driven by a desire for control, and that he is prepared for that. Yet Kasuma remains indifferent to this push for power or status. His true wish is simply to live a quiet, normal life. Hearing this, Sakura laughs openly, admitting she had expected nothing less. Still, she doubts he will ever find the peace he seeks. Deciding it's time to part ways, she mentions that her next visit might be as an ordinary customer. Kasuma replies with a smile, promising her exceptional service worthy of her standing, though he quickly cautions her not to get her hopes up. He warns that their next meeting might see them as adversaries rather than allies. This exchange underscores that Sakura is the only member of the Takahashi family whom Kasuma genuinely respects. She then takes her leave, bidding farewell to her former protégé. Perhaps sensing that they might never find themselves on the same side again, Yasuo remained frozen with shock. Observing her silence, Kasuma softly inquired whether she was all right. That simple question snapped her back to reality. Yasuo confessed that she couldn't make sense of what had just transpired, likening the experience to being trapped inside a video game where she almost got erased. He apologized for involving her in such a perilous situation, but Yasuo also took responsibility, admitting that she had provoked Rua and saw this entire ordeal as karma for her long-standing lies. However, as soon as she recalled that very lie, something else struck her. Kasuma had kissed her. Her face flushed crimson instantly. In an effort to change the subject, she thanked him for shielding her. Picking up their earlier conversation, which Rua had interrupted, she asked why he was always so kind to her, especially when she felt unworthy of his friendship. Kasuma hesitated, admitting he didn't have a clear answer. He confided that he had never had friends before and lacked a sense of what normalcy was. Nevertheless, he expressed admiration for her genuine nature, emphasizing that her true self was more than enough reason to get along. Yasuo, however, felt she hadn't yet made up for everything she'd put him through. Eager to do better, she expressed a desire to reconcile, prompting Kasuma to seize a chance. Shyly, he inquired if she would accompany him to go clothes shopping. He confessed he hadn't recovered from their karaoke incident and believed his recent makeover had failed because he didn't know what was considered normal. He wanted her help in discovering a style that suited him. Without hesitation, Yasuo eagerly took his arm, saying she'd love to assist. Brightly smiling, she already envisioned transforming him into the coolest guy alive. Kasuma, on the other hand, was content simply to look normal. Yet, when he continued calling her by her surname, Jirogi, she stopped him and requested he use her first name instead, adding that she would do the same for him. Finally, Kasuma mustered the courage to revisit the topic of the kiss. At first, he assumed she might scold him for not asking permission. Instead, Yasuo reassured him she wasn't upset. She hinted that since it was her first kiss, she only wished it had been a little more romantic. Hearing this, Kasuma realized it was an easy fix. Gently, he pulled her closer and kissed her once more. But that wasn't enough, and shyly, she asked for another. With confidence, she declared herself determined to win Kasuma's heart.